How's it going, everyone? This is the George here. And today, after taking a month off from reviewing movies and trying some other kind of videos and taking a little break from YouTube, we're going to start the 2024 review season with the first movie to review in a review series this year. I'm going to be reviewing all the X-Men, Deadpool, Wolverine movies leading up to Deadpool 3. And since I reviewed the first X-Men movie from 2000 a couple years ago, and I'll put the link to that down below if you want to check that out, I'll be reviewing X-Men 2 or X2 or X-Men United. So this movie was once again directed by Bryan Singer and stars Hugh Jackman, Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart, Rebecca Romijn, Halle Berry, Anna Paquin. And in this movie, we see the X-Men having to team up with Magneto and Mystique to stop a bigger threat to them, Colonel William Stryker, and his plot to exterminate all the mutants. And in this film, we are introduced to Nightcrawler as well, played by Alan Cumming. And we see more so of the human versus mutant conflict. Now, we heard about the bill back in the previous movie, the Anti-Mutant Bill. But here we really get to see how humans see some of the mutants. And what happens when a mutant tries to assassinate the president and the fear that it creates. And how certain people take advantage of that. In this case, Colonel Stryker, played by Brian Cox. And I'll say this when it comes to X-Men United in comparison to the first X-Men movie. The first X-Men movie is a pretty good movie that I like, but X-Men United is a great movie that I love a lot. This is one of the best sequels to a comic book movie that has come out, and this movie is going to be 21 years old this year. It turned 20 last year, and it's still one of the best in my opinion. It's got a great story, a great conflict, a very good villain, and some great action sequences. I want to get into the characters before I get into the other stuff. So Hugh Jackman, I mean, he's still terrific as Wolverine as always. Even in a bad X-Men movie, he's terrific. Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, they're still terrific as well as Charles and Eric, also known as Professor X and Magneto. Yeah, Anna Paquin's still very good as Rogue. Or the returning cast for the most part is still very good, but it's also the new cast members that are very good. As I said, Alan Cumming as Nightcrawler. This is a really great character that has a cool introduction. I know he's brainwashed by Stryker, but that first scene where he's taking down these Secret Service men to get to the president is one of the best action scenes I've seen in a 2000s comic book movie. And it's better than a lot of the action sequences you see nowadays. But even afterwards, some people might think, oh, he's going to be that annoying character, but he never comes across as annoying. He has some really key, important moments in regards to saving other characters later on in the movie. It's very disappointing that we don't get to see more of Nightcrawler in these X-Men movies, especially Alan Cumming's portrayal as Nightcrawler, because I thought he did a very good job. Brian Cox as Stryker, to me, is one of the more underrated comic book movie villains. Now, he's not godlike such as Loki. He doesn't have mutant powers like Ian McKellen's Magneto. He hates mutants. He doesn't have superpowers or super strength like Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. He doesn't have that iconic presence as Heath Ledger's Joker. But his actions, his motivations, his backstory in regards to certain characters, whether it's him creating Wolverine or his son's complicated history with Charles, his son being a mutant overall, his decisions, his motivations, his intentions, his actions. That's what makes him one of the better comic book movies out there. And even though he's just a human, he is a clear danger to the mutants. He creates his own version of Cerebro. He manipulates his son into having Professor X track down all the mutants to later kill them. That's how big of a villain he is, despite not having the powers that a lot of these other villains that have come before him or after him in comic book movies have. So, yeah, he's a very underrated villain, in my opinion. In some characters, we get to see more of. We get to see more of Bobby Drake, aka the Iceman. There's a really important scene later on in the movie where, after they escape the manor that gets invaded by or the mansion that gets invaded by Stryker's men, and they stop at Bobby Drake's house. Bobby Drake's parents discover that he's a mutant, and his mom says something like, "Can you try not being a mutant?" And you see how his brother all of a sudden hates him and is scared of him and calls the police. And it gives you a good insight as to how some humans are perceiving the mutants. You also have this new character called Pyro, who is friends with Rogue and Bobby, but he's more reckless with his powers. He keeps playing with his lighter. He's got powers to manipulate fire and control fire and all that. And you later see like how he gets easily swayed by Magneto and Mystique and their cause. So I like that they had that little storyline going on as well. And he has no problems using his mutant powers on humans while everyone else is like, "Don't do that, don't do that." He has no problem doing it. Um we get to see more of Rogue in this movie. Anna Paquin still does a very good job. And we see the complications of her having a relationship with Bobby Drake because they're trying to get around how do we, have more moments together, more kissing and touching without possibly killing Bobby Drake, even though Bobby Drake's not afraid of her touch. But you have that little story arc as well. And the action, I want to get back into the action because it's not just the Nightcrawler opening action sequence that's incredible. A lot of the action in this movie is incredible. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine just taking down Stryker's men at Xavier's mansion is still one of my favorite Wolverine moments and shows that you can have great Wolverine action, even if it's not R rated. I mean, I enjoy R rated Wolverine action, but that was a great scene. Wolverine versus Deathstrike later on in the movie. That's an incredible fight sequence. Any fight sequence involving Rebecca Romijn's Mystique looks incredible. The action in this movie, they really stepped it up in this movie, not just with a longer runtime than the first X-Men movie, but with more character development, more character moments, more characters, more of the mutant conflict with the humans on display, exploring more of Logan's past. The action also and the special effects also stepped it up. And the camera work capturing the action is done very well. And this movie just has a great balance of enjoyable and dark moments. Like you have some funny banter with Logan, especially with Bobby Drake when he's like gives him the soda and is like, just cool it off for me. But you also have those serious moments, not just like the Bobby Drake and his family moment, but some of the exploring Wolverine, the flashbacks of Wolverine, exploring his backstory. Like that's very important. Later on in the movie, Jean Grey makes a sacrifice to save everyone. And I will say, this is my one little gripe with the movie. It's just the sacrifice doesn't feel as impactful because it feels like we didn't get a lot of Jean Grey leading up to it. I mean, she did get more screen time in this movie than the previous movie, but because there's a lot of characters, we still don't focus a whole lot of her. Same thing with Cyclops. We don't really get a whole focus on him as well. So when we see how distraught he is over Jean's death, I mean, I feel bad for him, but I don't feel as bad for him as I do in regards to other characters in other movies who are taking the loss of a loved one very hard. And especially because I feel like we have more moments of Jean with Logan than we've seen Jean with Scott, even though Jean and Scott were the relationship, not Jean and Logan. But overall, with X Men United, this is a great movie that has great action, great characters, great performances, big stakes, and overall, this is one of the best superhero sequels that have come out just in general. And I feel like this is a great example of how a comic book movie should be, even if it's not a perfect movie, because it feels like comic book movies today, they either, they just don't have as great as villains as they used to be. Sometimes they're just too goofy. Sometimes they're way too serious. This movie has that great, perfect balance of everything to make a great comic book movie. And I feel like this is a movie that should be in more discussions of the best comic book movies of all time because that's how great it is. There are some people, even though I prefer Days of Future Past over this, there are people who prefer this over Days of Future Past, and I understand why because it's nearly, if not on that same level as Days of Future Past. But yeah, overall, I'm gonna give X-Men United an A. This is a terrific sequel, a great movie, and yeah, you should go check it out. And I'm sorry with the headphones; these are new headphones I'm still trying to get used to. But yeah, what are your thoughts of X-Men United? Did you love it? Did you hate it? And what do you think is one of the more underrated comic book movies or one of the best X-Men movies? Let me know in the comments down below. And I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe already if you haven't. Please share us with someone that likes X-Men movies. And I hope to see you guys real soon. Take care, everyone.